Another school massacre last month in the United States focused attention once again on the issue of gun control. President Barack Obama pricked the conscience of the nation, and once again the rallying cry of gun defenders was the right to bear arms. But in a now very familiar pattern, in between these all too frequent tragedies, the debate dies away, and as North America correspondent Ben Knight reports, schools are fending for themselves, assuming things will never change.
In the American Midwest, the school day starts early. You've never heard 2,000 teenagers so quiet. Here at Mentor High, on the outskirts of Cleveland, there are no metal detectors in the doorways. Yet it was a school like this one, just 20 minutes down the road, that in 2012 became another victim of this country's tragic epidemic.
The terror began early this morning in a normally quiet suburb of Cleveland.
Repeat, active gunshots at the high school.
Kids were settling in for breakfast around 7:30 this morning when a boy stood up and started shooting.
It was just 3 years ago, but so common have school shootings become here in the US that Chardon is all but forgotten. Not here, of course.
It really shook us pretty hard. Since something like Chardon hit so close to home, we deal with safety procedures almost every single day.
That means lockdown drills, preparing for an active shooter inside the school.
The door is most likely going to be locked to save time in the event of a situation like this.
So the door will be locked so a shooter can't just walk in?
Correct.
But then you're going to do something which buys even more time?
That's correct.
This school has installed a special device to barricade students inside the classroom.
So that's barricaded?
That's correct.
What's to stop someone from shooting that out and reaching down and pulling out the pin?
Well, obviously, with this being glass, it is not foolproof. What we're trying to do is buy our students and staff as much time as possible.
There are a few products like this on the market. This one's called the Barricade. It's not indestructible, but it will withstand an enormous amount of firepower. With gun reform gridlocked in Washington, schools are taking their security into their own hands.
We've had a lot of school shootings in the United States. They're not slowing down and they're not stopping. And so we have to take measures on our side to combat that in case something would happen. It would be a tragic event.
It's not hard to understand why a school like Mentor doesn't wait for someone else to solve the problem. Every week, on average, there is a shooting incident at an American school. And it's not as though there isn't a national debate going on, there is. But that debate is perhaps the gun lobby's greatest victory of all, managing to frame it so that somehow it's not guns that are the problem. President Barack Obama has been making a new push for gun control in America.
About 400,000 Americans have been shot and killed by guns since 9/11. 400,000. And I refuse to accept the notion that we couldn't have prevented some of those murders, some of those suicides, kept more families whole, protected more officers if we had passed some common sense laws.
His potential successor, Hillary Clinton, is also campaigning on gun control. But they're arguing in a vacuum. The debate in the United States has shifted. So much so that on the Conservative side, gun laws aren't even the issue anymore.
We have a mental health challenge.
In a number of these cases, these people have already been working with mental health professionals, but nothing was done about it.
Guns, no guns, it doesn't matter. You have people that are mentally ill, and they're going to come through the cracks.
On the face of it, it makes sense. Who else but a madman would commit the mass slaughter of innocents?
It's just too easy to say, let's fix mental health and we won't have this problem anymore.
Mary Ellen O'Toole is a former FBI profiler. She investigated the Columbine High School massacre and other school shootings.
If you take all of these mission-oriented shooters over the last 10 years, Each one of them had a different mental health issue. My fear is that at some point, people are going to start saying, well, let's look at all the paranoid schizophrenic individuals. Let's look for all the depressed people. Let's look for all the people that have maybe had a diagnosis of Asperger's. So which one are we going to lock up?
In fact, people with a severe mental illness are extremely unlikely to commit an act of violence. They're far more likely to be victims.
It's not the case that people diagnosed with schizophrenia are just going to run and attack people. Past history of alcohol use or current alcohol use, past history of violence, access to firearms, lack of firearm training. These are all factors that if we address them would severely curtail the number of shooting deaths that we have in the United States.
The biggest one, of course, being the presence of firearms.
Yeah, no, it's very hard to commit a shooting if you don't have a gun.
Some American states have already passed laws that require mental health professionals to report dangerous patients to police, who can then confiscate weapons. But the Sandy Hook shooter got his guns from his mother. The Oregon shooter bought all of his legally. What they had in common was not a specific mental illness, but a hatred of the world.
They blame the world for everything. They blame the world for their lot in life. They blame other people because they're not part of a group. Things are hopeless. It's not going to get any better. And it's all of your fault. It develops over years. There are warning behaviors. And so the mental health system would play a role in this, but it has to go back when they're little boys. We do feel that intervention is possible, but not when they're 18, 19, and 20. Too late.
And too late for the 20 people killed already this year at American campuses, to say nothing of the wounded and the traumatised. The mental health argument is important, but it's become a way of avoiding the impossible challenge of getting high-powered, military-grade murder weapons out of American society. So instead, it's left to the teachers and the administrators to protect the nation's children.
There's some train of thought that says you're going to have a bad day. It might not be on a really high level, but you have to be prepared for it and practice it. During the Cold War, always stop, drop, and roll and practice nuclear fallout and things like that. Obviously, we're not there anymore, but we've unfortunately evolved to, even in some ways, a more dangerous place.